Hello my bookworms, welcome back to my channel. My name is Sydney, and today's video is a little weird. As you can tell by the title of this video, I am giving you recommendations based on the rugs scattered around my house. So Caleb and I have always really loved the aesthetic of like a Turkish and Oriental style rug, and a few months ago we decided that we were gonna buy some. Some stores on Etsy were having some sales, so we ended up purchasing quite a few new rugs. And one of them in particular, when I saw it, I was like, oh my god, that reminds me of Middle Game by Sean and Maguire. And then like a light bulb went off in my head and I was like, oh my god, I should do a recommending books based on my rugs video. And Caleb was like, okay. But I've had this idea brewing in my head for so long, and I've just decided I'm gonna do it. Like, I don't care if this video doesn't do well. Like, I'm excited about this. I'm doing this video. I hope that you love it. So, most of these, like, book comparison to rug ratio will be like the cover looks like the rug. Besides the one book that really even gave me the idea for this video, which is Middle Game, so we'll get there when we get there. But yeah, so I mean, that's the idea. And full disclaimer, I haven't read a lot of these books, so I can't really tell you that like they are going to be really, really good, because some of them I genuinely don't know. This is a I need content and I thought this was a fun idea video, and we're running with it. So what's about to happen is I'm going to take you pretty much almost on a tour of like my house and just bring you around to the rugs and their respective book companions. And then we're gonna chat about them. So the first one that we're gonna start with is the one that you're currently sitting on. So I'm gonna move you over a little bit and we're gonna look at the rug and look at some books. I have no idea if this is good. Oh, this is so weird. Hi, okay. So it is this rug right here. I'll give you a close-up right now. And I have two books and one poetry collection that I am vibing with for this rug. Ready? Okay. And the first one is Legendborn by Claire Legrand. Furyborn is book one in the Emprium trilogy.
And in it, we follow two fiercely independent young women, centuries apart, told in parallel timelines, who hold the power to save their world or to doom it. There are assassins, elemental magic trials, bounty hunters, and rebel captains following this cosmic war that spans across millennia.
On the cover of this book, it says, "The world will fall, two queens will rise." And I am obsessed with that. I absolutely love how this book sounds. I love that it's a matte black, and all of these colors obviously are exactly what's on this rug. So it matches perfectly, and it's a really good paperback. It has a really nice flop, and if the idea of two powerful female protagonists spanning across millennia, taking charge and being their strong, independent self sounds fantastic, then you should check this out. The next book that vibes with this gold, black, and red rug is House of Leaves by Mark Z. Danielewski. This book, if you remember, I talked about it in my October TBR last year in 2020, because me and Caleb were supposed to be buddy reading it that month, but that was also the month that we got engaged and things were just a little busy. We were just enjoying life. So we ended up not being able to read it. But we will be reading it together sometime this year. And it is supposed to be like a very interactive, like scary story, basically. The synopsis of House of Leaves, I'm not entirely too keen on, but the general gist of it, I do know, is a family that is moving into a house, and the square footage on paper of the house is much smaller than the interior of the actual house. And there is one room in this house that is like 10 times bigger than what should be physically possible. And our main character is a Pulitzer Prize winning photojournalist named Will, and his companion Karen were not prepared to face the consequences of this impossibility until the day their two little children wandered off and their voices eerily begin to return another story of creature darkness, of an ever-growing abyss behind a closet door, and of that unholy growl which soon enough would tear through their walls and consume all of their dreams. I think this sounds absolutely wild. The way that this book is written, as you just saw, is in a way that really, really intrigues me. It really makes my mind and my heart like excited to pick it up and just experience this story. So I am very excited to pick this up soon. The next piece of work that I want to talk about in regards to this rug right here is a poetry collection that I was sent to by the poet herself, and she is an absolute angel. It is For a Rose That Blooms in Fire by Isabel Rossio, and I hope I'm saying your name right. Now, this is another thing in this video that I haven't quite read all of it. I've read a couple of the poems and I am already in love with it. I'm very excited to actually read it through, but a little bit about this collection taken from the poet's own words from one of her Instagram captions. The title was inspired by the resilience of nature and how she reflects back to us our power as human beings. Even after chaos, destruction, fire, the next day there will always be something fresh and green blooming from the ashes, finding a way to thrive amongst the ruin. Some people find strength in the fire, some people find peace in the aftermath. Everyone's alchemy looks different. Everyone's healing blooms at different paces. There is no one way or right way to come back to yourself. It can take years to not only understand what self-love is, but to deliberately show up as a student of loving you the way you need to be loved daily. And this collection just speaks really strongly to me because I have always been very, very amazed by nature as a whole, in a sense of it continues to live and thrive in the harshest and most unexpected conditions. And the way that she tied that into the title of her poetry collection about self-love, finding yourself again, and really just digging yourself out of a terrible situation. I resonate with all of that so strongly, and I'm so looking forward to getting into this poetry collection. And if it sounds good to you, then you should check it out as well. So that's it for this rug and this room. We are going to head into the hallway right there and go to the rug that started it all. You ready? Okay, let's go. Okay, hi, we're at the top of my stairs now. I'm sitting on the rug now. Really pretty, kind of strange rug. Caleb wasn't really all into buying this one, but this was the one that I really wanted. Avi's really anxious. She doesn't really understand what I'm doing. Here's a little look at the rug itself. It kind of has this little grid pattern down at the bottom, and these pillars that kind of look like light beams, and along with a temple looking thing with a really pretty border. Now, who in their right mind would see this rug and think, Middle Game, which looks like this? Not many people, because this is the one book in this video that I know doesn't look like the rug at all. But there's one particular thing in this book that instantly made me think of it when I saw this rug. So, if you don't know what Middle Game is about, it is about two twins who are not exactly human. Roger is skilled with words. Languages come easy to him, and he instinctively understands how the world works through the power of story. And then Dodger is his twin, where numbers are her world, her obsession, her everything. All she understands, she does so through the power of math. Now, like I said, Roger and Dodger aren't exactly human, but they aren't gods either. Not entirely, not yet. They were created by a man named Reed, skilled in the alchemical arts, and he has a plan to raise the twins to their highest power, to ascend with them and claim their authority as his own. The catchphrase of the book is, "Godhood is attainable, pray it isn't attained." Now, obviously, I know that this book doesn't match up with this rug, but one of the things in this book is they are trying to get to the impossible city. And I don't want to spoil anything, but there are scenes in this book that involve the impossible city where there was a grid space vibe going on. And I don't know if anyone else could see it. I don't know if my brain is weird and just locked onto that one sentence in the book. But when I saw this rug and that grid pattern down here, that was all I thought about was oh my God, that is the impossible city. This rug is the impossible city. And that is legitimately the connection between Middle Game and this rug, is that possibly only one sentence in the book that maybe no one else will notice, and maybe I'm making it up, but this was the connection, Middle Game and this rug, from whence the idea of this video was birthed. I ended up giving Middle Game 4.5 to 5 out of 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. It's definitely one of those slow burn type books. If you love a slow burn or don't mind one, and you really like a story that you really get to know the characters on a very deep level. It starts when they're kids and then it goes into their young adulthood while they are dealing with the fact that they're not human. They have special powers and things going on. And you learn all about those things on such a fundamental emotional level. And it's weird. It's a very weird book. So if those things sound interesting to you, you will probably enjoy this book. And the book that I chose that matches this rug a little bit better is Last Night at the Telegraph Club by Melinda Lowe. And this is one of my most anticipated reads that came out in 2021. It came out last month in January, and I still have to get to it. It's just how it is. But I'm very excited about it. And I think that some of the colors on here could match the vibe of the rug. If you don't see it, then you don't see it. I'm doing the best with what I have, you know? Last Night at the Telegraph Club involves 16-year-old Lily Hu and Kathleen Miller. They were walking underneath a flashing neon sign of a lesbian bar called the Telegraph Club. And the two women were talking about a book, and Lily said it was about two women and they fell in love with each other. Have you ever heard of such a thing? And Lily couldn't remember when exactly that question took root, but the answer was actively blooming for the two. America in 1954 is not a safe place for two girls to fall in love, especially not in Chinatown. Red Scare paranoia threatens everyone, including Chinese Americans like Lily. With deportation looming over her father, despite his hard-won citizenship, Lily and Kath risk everything to let their love see the light of day. And the quote on the cover says, "This book is for anyone who has ever loved in any sense of the word." I am just in love with this cover. I think that the vibes of it are just absolutely immaculate. I just love how it looks so much. And the content of the story absolutely sounds super interesting to me. And if it sounds interesting to you, then go support... Oh, hi. Hi. All of the animals are just coming out. They're like, Mom, what are you doing? You don't sit here. I sit here. If this book sounds interesting, Juno thinks that you should read it. Now we're gonna move on to the next rug, which is sitting right next to me over here. It is the hallway going into our bedroom. So let's just, you know, turn around a little bit and then chat about some more books, yeah? For this rug, I have 2 poetry collections and 1 book. The first one, we're gonna go with a poetry collection, and it is Registers of Illuminated Villages by Tarfia Faizullah. To tell you a little bit more about what this poetry collection encompasses, I'm going to be reading from what some reviewers have said, that which is on the back of the book. In her collection of poems, Tarfia Faizullah skillfully traverses lands and experiences that at first seem very far apart. Northern Iraq, Flint, Michigan, West Texas, Eastern Turkey. Weaving between them, she shares elegies, apologies, diaries, soliloquies, and self-portraits, transporting readers to a world of djinns, conjuring languages fed from birth, and evoking the ache of losing a sister. These are compositions of tragedy, accident, solace, and most of all, of survival. If you are looking to get into poetry and you are trying to diversify the cultures of people that you are reading from, this is definitely a great option. Poetry collections are ones that I don't like to read through completely in one sitting. I like to read a couple, come back to it every now and then, and the ones that I have read from this collection are absolutely beautiful. The next one I want to talk about is also a poetry collection, and it is Soft Science by Franny Choi. In person, the pinks on this cover and here actually match up a little bit better than they're catching on camera, but regardless, I wanted to put this on here anyway. Soft Science explores queer Asian American femininity. A series of Turing test-inspired poems grounds its exploration of questions not just of identity, but of consciousness. How to be tender and feeling and still survive a violent world filled with artificial intelligence and automation. We are dropped straight into the tangled intersections of technology, violence, erasure, agency, gender, and loneliness. I am just absolutely in love with this cover. I think that it is absolutely stunning. And just the fact that it has like queer Asian American representation, like we love to see it. And the fact that this collection has a Turing test inspired layout is really, really interesting to me. Because of that, and the fact that there are things like this diagram that are in one of the pages describing what different words mean to the author and little antonyms of it, origins, dreams of being, like it's just so interesting. I hope that that makes it a little bit more exciting to you, especially if you're not very into poetry. I feel like this would be a good one for you to try. We have one more book for this little rug right here, and it is The Death of Vivek Oji by Akwaeke Emezi. Akwaeke Emezi is just such an incredible writer, and this book is no different. This book says, what does it mean for a family to lose a child they never really knew? One afternoon in a town in southeastern Nigeria, a mother opens her front door to discover her son's body wrapped in colorful fabric at her feet. What follows is the tumultuous, heart-wrenching story of one family's struggle to understand a child whose spirit is both gentle and mysterious. This story is compulsively readable, teeming with unforgettable characters. It is a novel of family, friendship, and the self that challenges expectations, a dramatic story of loss and transcendence that will move every reader. The story itself is just so raw and real, and the way that Mezi writes is so vivid that you will definitely be hard-pressed to put it down. Okay, so now we are going to move downstairs, so let's go. Okay, hey, we are at the base of my stairs now, and we are talking about this rug that I'm currently sitting on. It's very pretty. It's arguably one of my favorites, and I will be recommending 2 books based on this rug. My first one is If I Disappear by Eliza Jane Brazier. And this is a 2021 release that just recently came out, and it is a thriller. I am very excited to get to this book. It sounds really, really captivating, very interesting. So let me just tell you a little bit about it. Our main character in this story is Sarah, and when her favorite true crime podcast host goes missing, she sets out to investigate and plunges headfirst into the wild backcountry of Northern California and her own dangerous obsession. To begin her search, Sarah follows the clues hidden in the episodes to an isolated ranch outside of Rachel's small hometown. Rachel is the owner of the podcast. She's convinced her investigation will make Rachel so proud, but the more Sarah digs into this unfamiliar world, the more off things start to feel. Because Rachel is not the first woman to vanish from the ranch, and she won't be the last. And Rachel did try to warn her. The fact that this is set in the northern backcountry of California is super intriguing to me because I was just recently there. And of course I stayed on the hiking trails, but the backcountry of that part of the United States is rough. Like, it is scary. It's beautiful, but it's scary. So I am very excited to dive into this book, and I hope that that intrigues some of you to buy this 2021 release as well. The next book that gives me the vibes of this rug is The Strange Case of the Alchemist's Daughter by Theodora Goss. And in this one, Mary Jekyll, alone and penniless following her parents' death, quickly finds herself drawn to the secrets of her father's mysterious past. A clue leads her to believe that Edward Hyde, her father's former friend and murderer, may be nearby, and there is still a reward for the information resulting in his capture, a reward that would solve all of her immediate financial woes. But her hunt brings her not to Edward Hyde, but to Diana, his daughter, a near-feral child left to be raised by nuns. With the assistance of Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson, Mary continues her search for the elusive Hyde, and soon gathers around her more women, all of whom have been created through terrifying experimentation. Beatrice, Catherine, and Justine. When their investigations lead them to a discovery of a secret society of immoral and power-crazed scientists, quite simply, it is time for the monsters to triumph over the monstrous. Now again, this is a book that I have not had the pleasure of reading quite yet, but it sounds absolutely amazing. It sounds super weird. I love that it ties in like Sherlock Holmes, Dr. Watson, and the experimentation with like Frankenstein. There's a lot of like old school stories coming into play in this one story. And this is just the first book in the story. So I love a good series, and it vibes with the rug real well. So now let's move over into my living room rug. So this is a big rug, so I have 4 recommendations for you. Are you ready? All right, let's go. The first one is This Is How You Lose the Time War by Amal El-Motar and Max Gladstone. This book, to sum it up quickly, is like a very poetically, beautifully written, highbrow, sapphic time travel fantasy. I shouldn't need to say anything else. Like, that's it, and it's amazing. A lot of people with this book, they will either love it or they hate it, but if you get the audiobook with it while you're reading it with your eyes, I think that you have a much better chance of actually putting your whole attention into the book and really understanding what's going on. I definitely recommend reading this book in one day if possible. It's a book that requires your attention, and it is just so beautifully written that if you really like that poetic style of writing, then you should really enjoy this book. The next book I want to recommend regarding this rug is Summer of Salt by Katrina Leno. This book I read last year, and I really, really loved it. With this book, our main character is Georgina, and she lives in a family of women who are magical. Every woman in this family that Georgina is from, by their 18th birthday, shows their ability, their special power per se that they were born with. And our main character is only a couple months away from her 18th birthday, and she still doesn't know what her ability is. And she's worried that it'll never come. Now, this family lives on an island called By the Sea. And on this island, there is very temperamental, strange weather that's going on. There is this 300-year-old bird that comes around every single year that tourists come and flock to the island and stay at the family's inn for the yearly celebration that is the return of this bird. And during this year's celebration, tragedy strikes, and what made the Fernway women special suddenly casts them into suspicion. Over the course of Georgina's last summer here on the island, a summer of storms, love, and of salt, she will learn the truth about magic in all of its forms. Katrina Leno's writing is just so whimsical and fun, and I really just remember having a really great time reading this book. This book has LGBTQ plus rep in it, and the story itself is just entirely entertaining, so I definitely recommend it to you. It is for sure a great, quick, short read. The next book that I'm recommending based on this rug is No Exit by Taylor Adams. This was the first thriller that I have ever read. I read it last year and it was absolutely incredible. If you haven't heard about this thriller, then I don't really know where you've been because it is a lot of people's favorites here on BookTube, and rightly so. It is basically about a young woman who has to drive back home because she learned that her mother has cancer and has to go under surgery. On the way home, there is a massive snowstorm and she ends up having to pull over and ultimately gets snowed in at this rest stop with 4 other strangers. Desperate to find a signal to call home, the exhausted young art student goes back out into the storm and makes a horrifying discovery. In the back of one of the vans parked next to her car, there's a little girl locked in an animal crate. Trapped in an increasingly dangerous situation on the edge of civilization with a child's life and her own on the line, Darby, our main character, must find a way to break the girl out of the van and escape. But who can she trust? This book had so many plot twists that literally had me on the edge of my seat. I 100% recommend it to everyone who asks for a thriller recommendation. The next one that I want to recommend to you is another poetry collection, and this one is The Octopus Museum by Brenda Shaughnessy. And I love that it's a hardcover and it's just like a really small collection. I don't know, it feels really nice, and I like the shape of it. All in all, just really psyched about it, I guess. This collection is a bold and scathingly beautiful work that imagines what comes after our current age of environmental destruction, racism, sexism, and divisive politics. In these pages, we see that what was once a generalized fear for our children, a car accident or falling from a tree, is now hyper-reasonable, specific, and multiple. School shootings, nuclear attack, loss of healthcare, and a polluted planet. As the poet conjures our potential future, she movingly, and often with humor, envisions an age in which cephalopods rule over humankind, keeping us as specimens in their museum. A fate that she suggests we just may deserve after destroying their oceans. I think that this sounds really awesome. I love the idea that she goes into of that cephalopods like rule over us and keep us as exhibits in their own museum one day. And I love when poetry brings in humor, because a lot of poetry, understandably, is kind of not sad or dark, but like more cathartic for the person who's writing it, and therefore touches on a lot of really heavy subjects. And this one does too, obviously, but I really like when I find a collection that has some humor in it too. So if that sounds interesting to you in any way, I hope that you're able to pick it up. Okay, we are on to the last rug, people. We have done big things today. We are just going to turn around so that we would be facing my kitchen, and we're gonna go sit on the rug that would be leading us that way. Hello, welcome to the last carpet, which is kind of like a runway of a carpet. It's a big one. It's pretty large. And it is one of my favorites. I think that it is just really pretty. And a book that I want to recommend based on this beautiful carpet is called Nobody Is Ever Missing by Catherine Lacey. And I think that this cover is debatably the one that looks most like a rug that I'm comparing it to, Cause like, if you think about it, like the waves of the hair is kind of like the waves of the rug, and the colors are just like literally the same. But this cover is absolutely beautiful, and the synopsis of the story says, without telling her family, Illyria takes a one-way flight to New Zealand, abruptly leaving her stable but unfulfilling life in Manhattan. As her husband scrambles to figure out what happened to her, Illyria hurtles into the unknown, testing fate by hitchhiking, tactically being swept into the lives of strangers, and sleeping in fields, forests, and public parks. Her perilous and often surreal encounters with the people and wildlife of New Zealand propel Illyria deeper into her deteriorating mind. Haunted by her sister's death and consumed by inner violence, her growing rage remains so expertly concealed that those who meet her sense nothing unwell. Juno's got the zoomies. This is a book that I actually made it to like page 50 and then just didn't pick it up again. It's not because I wasn't enjoying it. It was because I was still in college and I ended up having to study for a test and then just kind of forgot about it, to be completely honest. But this is a relatively short book. It's like 244 pages, and it looked most like the rug, so I had to put it in here, hoping that this recommendation sounded like something that someone would like to pick up. The next one that I want to recommend based on this rug is Clap When You Land by Elizabeth Acevedo. I ended up reading this book this month, finally, and it is 1000% a 5 out of 5 read for me. I was literally tearing up on page, what is that, 2? Oh, page 1. I was tearing up on page 1. That's what the blue tab means. Cool. But this is all about two young girls, Camino, who lives in the Dominican Republic, and Yaharia, who lives in New York City. They don't know it yet, but they share a father. And one day when Papi was on a plane going to visit Camino in the Dominican Republic, he ends up not making it there due to the plane crashing. Papi's death uncovers all the painful truths he kept hidden and the love he divided across an ocean. And now Yaharia and Camino are both left to grapple with what a new sister means to them and what it will take to keep their dreams alive. This book is told in verse, and I absolutely love when a book is told in verse, especially when it is narrated by the author, and especially when it is told by Elizabeth Acevedo, because her voice is just absolutely stunning. This book hits on some pretty heavy and serious topics in a way that is so expertly done, and I 100% recommend this book to you and everyone else. Moving down into the house, just a little bit more into the kitchen, I have one more rug for you and one more recommendation. Here we have this cute little yellow kitchen rug that I love a lot. And for this rug, I want to recommend Beach Read by Emily Henry. And it is about our main characters, Augustus and January. Augustus is an acclaimed author of literary fiction, and January writes best-selling romance. For the next 3 months, they're living in neighboring beach houses and are both struggling with a severe case of writer's block. They agree to swap genres, and now Augustus will spend the summer writing something happy and romantic, and January will pen the next great American novel, writing literary fiction. Everyone will finish a book, and no one will fall in love. Really. I have just recently read like my first romance book, and this is one that I'm actually really excited to get to because I love writing, and I think that this is a really great setup for a romance story that has high chances of me really enjoying it. So if you are into romance or wanting to dip your toe into the genre, I think that this would be a great place to start or a great next read for you. Well, I think that's finally all I have for you today. If you are still watching, then leave the little genie on a carpet emoji and let me know if any of these books or collections caught your attention. I would love to hear which one stood out to you. But yeah, so thank you so much for watching this weird and pretty random video. I appreciate all of your support as always. Don't forget to subscribe down below, like the video, and as always, be kind to one another and happy reading.